What's the craziest butterfly effect that happened to you because of a small decision you made? Decided I would rather use my bathroom than a porta potty. Found my wife cheating. She attempted suicide. I moved multiple states away. In the 7 years since, I have made nothing but positive changes and went from $18 hour laborer to a well-respected person in my profession making 6 figures. I'd probably still be working that dead-end job. Aside from that, without recounting all the details, I went to see a doctor about a splinter from chopping firewood. 6 months later they removed most of my kidney with renal cell carcinoma. Without the splinter I'd likely be dead from kidney cancer. I decided to invite my chem lab partner to lunch on the first day of college, just to be friendly and try to make more than one friend at school. We met up with the only other friend I'd made at school so far. He thought my lab partner was cute, invited himself to hang out with her, and then fell in love with her roommate instead. He ended up married to the roommate. They've been together for 22 years and have 2 children. Well, now I'm mad. I thought the person who was supposed to be my chem lab partner on the first day was cute. I got up to use the bathroom, and when I came back some late student came in and had taken my seat. We both looked at each other pretty disappointed and I instead got an annoying guy. In high school I took an intermediate biology course. I had never done biology before but was good at science generally, so I thought the intermediate course would be a good fit. My science teacher of a couple year previous happened to walk into my class to talk to the biology teacher, and she spotted me in the class. She asked me what grades I had got the previous year. I told her and she nodded and left. A minute later she came back in and asked me to gather my belongings and leave the class. I was pretty sure I was in trouble for something I couldn't recall. She led me to another classroom and sat me down on an empty chair. Then she just started teaching. Turns out that she was running the advanced class that year and just decided to steal me as a student. I went on to take biology at undergrad level, and then a master's. I ended up doing a PhD in immunology and now work as an advisor for pharma companies. It gets better though. I decided I wanted to do my master's in London, and met a girl on the way. We are now 10 years in and own a house together. All that because that teacher happened to look in my direction. Mayo, that teacher straight up stealing students. Watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and got so annoyed at the candidates not knowing a simple question about Katy Perry that I applied, got in, got a play, won a lot of money, booked a holiday to her dream destination with that money, met my husband there. We now have a 1-year-old son. This one made me laugh. Congrats. I had to renew the sticker on my license plate a couple of years ago and really didn't feel like sitting in the waiting room by myself forever, so I told my mom I'd take her out to dinner after if she came with me. The guy working at the counter turned out to be my mom's long lost biological brother. If she hadn't come with me I would have never known. How is this not the top comment? Also, I feel like more information definitely wouldn't hurt. My husband. He found out after 18 years that his mom's side of the family was Spanish, not Mexican. He found this interesting and changed his country to Spain on MySpace instead of the US where he really was. Meanwhile in Australia, I was helping my friend find Spanish people to add as a friend as she was learning the language. I came across my now husband and decided to send him a friend request as well. We got along really well and met in person after 3 years. Have been together 11 years, married for 7. If he didn't change his country to Spain, and only for a day or so, we'd never know each other existed. This one is the best I've read so far. My desire for pizza set off a chain reaction that destroyed my family. One day got home from school and really wanted pizza. Family was poor, so spontaneous food trips weren't always in the cards. Really worked my pouty face to my mom and begged to go to the local pizza place for dinner. She said alright. While chilling there I saw my uncle walk by, and I was like, the frick, Uncle X, is that you? Now you might say, well, he wanted pizza, what's the big deal? Well, he lives several states away, so to arbitrarily be in town and not tell anyone was strange. Turned out he was having an affair with his sister-in-law, my aunt on the other side of the family. She was basically a money-grubbing W and the family protested. One thing led to another and everyone hates each other now and we haven't had contact in like 20 years. I just wanted some pizza. Domino's effect. My existence. When my dad was about 20, he needed a phone number, so he called the operator from a payphone. She gave him the number. He hung up, and she accidentally refunded the money back to the payphone. She called the payphone back and asked him if he could put the money back in, which he did, and hung up again. She accidentally refunded the money again and had to call back again to ask him to put the money back in. He did and hung up again. She was so flustered. She refunded the money again and called back again, and my father got to chatting with her and got her number. They set up a date, which she stood him up for. Then she forgot his name when he called her again. Then they actually got coffee and 4 years later were married. This coming August it'll be 50 years for them. If my dad didn't need that phone number, I wouldn't be here. Lmao, I felt bad for her just reading that first part. My heart wouldn't take the stress. About a year ago, I went to a study group with some people in my major. Now I have the closest set of friend I could ever ask for. They helped me when my car was broken and I couldn't get to and fro from college, when I didn't have enough money to buy myself food. Now, I have a good job, and 2 of my friends and I are getting an apartment together in a couple of months. Out of university, looking for a job and exhausting all the online resources. On a whim, I looked in the career section in a print newspaper that was lying around in the house. We never subscribed to that paper. I don't know why it was even there. Got the job in a different city. Met someone who is now one of my best friends. Who introduced me to their friends. Who introduced me to their friends, and so on. Until I was eventually introduced to my wife. If I'd found a job where I actually planned on working, there is absolutely no way I would have crossed paths with any of these people. Newspapers from destiny itself. About 10 years ago, there were no PC games to play, so I tried using Windows XP's Movie Maker out of boredom. I didn't know that I'm going to enjoy it and take it seriously. Now, I'm currently working on a TV film production as a video editor. I also started on Windows Movie Maker. I specifically remember having to save the video multiple times and import it back in to add more text layers. 4 years ago, a kid I barely knew from school invited me to a Six Flags. I was a bit of a loner at the time and I heard rumors about this kid being weird, so I intended to not go. On the day he wanted me to go, I was feeling extra bored and decided on a whim why not. So I went and met this kid and 2 of his friends I've never met at a Six Flags. 4 years later and that kid is my best friend. And I have 3 other very close friends I met through him. Not only that, but I also met my first girlfriend because of the connections some of my new friends had. It transformed my high school years from being alone to having an amazing group of friends I could do almost anything with. I intended to ask my best friend to be my best man one day, and I don't intend on ever getting out of touch with any of them. I'm home from college now, and we are going to have a lot of fun together. Best decision I've ever made. The older I get, the more I am constantly cognizant of the vast cascade of seemingly insignificant decisions and actions that led me to where I am. For example, a decision 25 years ago to change a refrigerator light bulb before going out resulted in my being at the wrong time and place so as to get mugged, which resulted in my decision to move out of the city I had been living in, which resulted in my meeting my wife, and from there to having all my kids and the whole shebang. I would have had a different whole shebang had I not changed that light bulb that afternoon, but the path to the present leads through that, and 1,000 other, similarly trivial decisions. This is so interesting to me. I wonder if your life would really be so different if it wasn't for that light bulb, or that you might have decided the same because of other reasons. I guess that is the general question on the validity of the butterfly effect. Was going to carpool with my aunt to a family gathering. At the last minute I decided to go by myself so I could leave early if I wanted. It was a ways out of town and I didn't want to be stuck there. On the way there she drove off the road into a ditch. She was okay, but the passenger side of her car was totally smashed in. At a university career fair and just has a long day taking to companies and heading out when I see a Honda booth. Designing cars would be awesome, but there is a huge line. It has been a long day, and what are the chances? But wait, they are giving away hats and shirts and model cars. So I talk to them. A day later I get a call back for an online assessment. I fill that out and don't hear anything back for a month or so. I get a call one night saying I was an alternate and someone cancelled last minute, so they want to fly me up for on-site interviews. I go and end up getting and accepting an offer. After graduation I move about 1,000 miles away from home for my new job, where a few years after I meet my now wife and we have 2 kids. I never would have crossed paths with her otherwise. So the entire course of my life was shifted because Honda gave away good swag at their career fair booth. My parents' dream was to have a famous child. When my older sister's figure skating career ended in her early 20s, the spotlight shifted to me. I was a fine oboist and took private voice lessons with intent to audition for the local music faculty, opera. In any case, there was a lot of pressure, and while I was successful at school and classical music, it was never enough. At 17, before senior year began, my sister gifted me a kitten. My parents had given her 2 in her senior year, and the implication was that it was my turn. When my sister dropped me off, my parents locked me out, saying that if I wanted my own pet I needed my own place. So I found one. That night, I worked 3 jobs to support myself through senior year and graduated with entrance scholarships to both of the local universities. I couldn't afford a music degree while living on my own, even with the entrance scholarships. And good thing, entering the workforce showed me how much I love active jobs. 3 years later, I enrolled in college and became an industrial mechanic millwright, to my parents' great shame. After a few years of this I landed a sweet contract where I work on Saturdays and Sundays but receive a full week's pay. Although I am a living beacon of disappointment, I comfort myself with my $100k a year job, 2-day work week, and 2 cats. Being kicked out over a kitten saved me from wasting years chasing an improbable career just to please my parents. I wish I could get a 2-day work week. Sounds freaking magical. My wife got an email from her old colleagues the day we returned home from our honeymoon, asking if she wanted to star in a short film they were doing for fun. She said sure, and asked if I could come along, as she knew I had an interest in movies. But at the time I worked in life insurance and was miserable. It was more than an interest, I had always wanted to make films, but never made the right connections with people and didn't know where to start. I made friends with the producer of that short film my wife was in, and 11 years later filmmaking and video production is my career. I've shot feature films, short films, video for TV and web, and all over the world because of that one email to my wife. Changed our lives. Oh, and that original short film never got finished, lol. I definitely thought this was gonna be about pee. I sent a friend from secondary school, who I had a huge crush on, a message saying happy birthday a couple years after we left school. Did the whole we'll have to catch up soon thing, not expecting much. He replied with how about Monday. I saw him that Monday for a coffee. Next month will be our 6th anniversary. Best thing that ever happened to me. My friends joke I'm queen of escaping the friend zone. From the guy's side 100% of the time it's, she doesn't want to catch up with me, she is just being courteous. I was always super flirty with the girl from HR, but we were always seeing other people don't date at work, so when she left the company I was bummed. A year or 2 later a co-worker asked me to search my email archives, that was a thing back then, for something he needed. I ended up stumbling across the farewell to my work friend's email from HR girl, and she sent it from her personal email address. I reached out to her, we had coffee, then a date, then many dates, then I love yous and I put a ring on it ASAP. 12 years later, extremely happily married, 2 goofy kids, 2 evil cats, and she still puts up with my bulls. Super flirty with the girl from HR. Oh buddy, high risk there but it paid off. I swear folks in HR are either awesome or horrible people, very little in between. Really like the ones at my last 2 employers, but we're both married so no flirty. Right before freshman year of high school, I was interested in trying out for the tennis team. I was lukewarm about it, and the morning of tryouts my dad came into the room and asked if I wanted to go. I was leaning towards no and just wanted to be lazy in bed, but my dad asked, "Do you think you'll regret it if you don't?" The answer was yes. So I went and tried out. I ended up meeting my absolute best friends. rekindled my love for tennis, was on varsity for 3 years, and it completely dictated my high school career. At 15 I decided to stay home to play a soccer match rather than go babysit for my aunt and uncle. As a result my uncle went out alone, took a shortcut home, fell into a river and drowned. It's not your fault, man. I have one for another person. In 2014, I was coaching my twins, MF, rec flag football team. My oldest player has a younger sister who came to watch a practice. We will call her Grace. She saw my daughter on the team, told her dad there's a girl on that team, and the next week, she was on my roster. Her and my daughter became fast friends. While the flag football season was wrapping up, I was putting together my roster for the upcoming rec volleyball team. At the end of one of my practices, my daughter invited Grace to play on the volleyball team together. Grace had played the previous season and not cared for it too much. Grace agreed and played from rec to club then to high school with my daughter. My daughter graduated last year, and I watched Grace, as captain, led her team to a state championship, and she has a D1 scholarship for volleyball next fall. I love this one because your actions positively impacted someone else's life. Good job being a good coach and good example. I chose to rearrange the sequence of classes slightly before starting my education. By doing this, I had to commute to a different branch of the school in a different town than the one I was originally signed up for. On my first day there, I helped a girl who had managed to break both of her arms in a drunken shopping cart accident. I learned later, this girl, whom I would absolutely never have met had I not changed my classes around, is my wife through 14 years. Managed to break both of her arms in a drunken shopping cart accident. That's gotta be a story in and of itself. The other day I was driving home from work. Traffic was light and I was behind a car with a number plate that started KFD. Decided to duck through KFC drive-thru for chippies with extra salt as a little treat to myself. They took forever to bring them out, and by the time they finally did, all told about 10 minutes later, traffic has slowed to a complete halt. I need to get over a bridge that's normally 6 lanes which has now been reduced to 1. Turns out it's due to a massive collision involving several cars. When I finally get to the point where I'm driving past, I notice the number plate on one of the cars. That same KFD number plate. If I hadn't stopped to get hot chips, I'm fairly sure I'd have been in a major collision. TLDR. KFC chippies with extra salt saved my life. Kentucky final destination. My friends took me to Malaga in Spain for a long weekend to cheer me up after my mum died, and 4 years later I'm still here and have never been happier. I owe them everything for that spontaneous trip. I was given 2 start dates for an entry-level job in a large organization. The date I choose to start led to working in a small but high-profile team, so I got lots of exposure with senior management and I became the can-do guy who'd fix a million tiny problems. That recognition led to promotions, a fantastic career, further professional qualifications, and working overseas for several years. I also met my best friend and my partner. If I'd chosen the other date, I'd have been sent to a data processing pool and been fairly anonymous. In Afghanistan, wasn't done with my coffee, so I passed on a trip from one base to another. There was another convoy a few hours later. Most everyone died who took the first convoy. My second cup of coffee wasn't even cold when I found out. Holy frick. I made a dumb Facebook post because I was bored. Like for a TBH. A girl liked the post and I sent her a message. 8 years later, we are now married. 21st century love, 3. There was this rainy day that flooded a small piece on the street on the way to my now ex-GF house. She had to stay over the night. Now I'm someone's father. Children, the most intractable STD. This is obviously going to get buried because I'm late to the party. A few years ago, I was on the phone with my boss as I was getting home, discussing what we needed to get done the next day when he asked what the F is that noise. I said it'd make more sense to just show you. So I took a video of me opening the door and feeding my, very loud, farm cats. I realized I didn't like anyone crowding me awkwardly looking at my phone when I show someone a video, so I uploaded it to YouTube. The next morning I went to show him on the computer and noticed it was up to 11 views, which I found odd. Then it went viral. Thousands of views per hour. I was getting constant calls and emails about buying the video rights and just asking for permission to use it. It took off again in the pandemic time and has been a nice little source of income when things have been rough. All because I don't like holding my phone to show someone else a 30-second video. PLS, pay the cat tax and link the video. Burned my arm on an extremely hot plate working at a restaurant in NYC. New manager didn't like that I told him we were out of towels to hold hot plates. Had a vendetta against me. 6 months later, found a reason to fire me. Friend got me a job working on the set of a low budget movie. Met a woman named Dorothy who was key PA. A full year later I ran into her on the street. She asked if I still worked in production. Got me a job on reality TV. Worked 9 seasons on a renovation show, learning Finnish carpentry and eventually becoming an on-screen carpenter. New PA on set. Beautiful, sassy, amazing. Ask her out. Was just a key PA at the time. 2 years later we moved to New Orleans together. A year later we moved back to NYC and have our first child. 3 years later we moved to Montreal. Been here for 3 years. I now have a wife, 2 kids, and a successful contracting business, all because I burned my arm on a plate 10 years ago. Ordered some shirts off the internet. Company sent a size too small. Emailed them and they sent the correct size and let me keep the other ones too. My grandpa's house was being redone. Noticed one of the workers liked a band I did and gave him the shirts that didn't fit. Years later, working and having a smoke break, guy overhears me and a friend discussing a concert we were going to, asked about it and said he had some old shirts I could have. Met up with him after work to hang out. They were my shirts from a couple years before. We start hanging out and he is dating this girl. She says she has a friend that she thinks would be perfect for me. We hook up. Been married for almost 10 years with 2 kids. All for a few shirts that the company sent me the wrong size for. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.